You unlock your phone, scroll for less than 60 seconds, and a sudden, quiet wave of inadequacy washes over you. You see someone else's achievement, their lifestyle, or their apparent ease of living, and your stomach sinks. You did not wake up intending to measure your worth against a stranger, yet the calculation happened completely automatically. Suddenly your own progress feels invisible, and your current life feels profoundly insufficient. Pop psychology calls this low self-esteem or toxic comparison, and tells you to simply practice gratitude. But these platitudes fail because they misunderstand the underlying architecture of the human mind. The crushing weight of feeling left behind is not an emotional flaw or a lack of mental discipline. It is a highly primitive, automated biological alarm. Your brain is running an ancient evolutionary program that treats a drop in social status not as a minor psychological inconvenience, but as an active existential threat to your survival. To understand why social comparison feels so physically devastating, we must look at the strict biological blueprint of the ancestral human brain. For over 99% of human history, our ancestors survived exclusively in small, tight-knit nomadic tribes. In these primitive environments, your relative social standing within the group dictated your literal access to resources, protection, and genetic survival. If your status within the tribe dropped to the bottom, or if you were perceived as less capable than your peers, your risk of abandonment skyrocketed. In the ancient world, social exclusion or ostracization was an absolute death sentence. Because the stakes were so high, evolution could not leave status tracking to conscious, rational thought. It hardwired a relentless, hypervigilant surveillance system deep within our neural tissue. You are the direct descendant of the primates who obsessed over their social standing, because the ones who did not care about comparison simply did not survive to pass on their genes. The primary neurological engine behind this constant social measurement is a highly complex network known as the default mode network. This circuit spans across the medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex. Unlike the networks used for focused external tasks, the default mode network activates automatically whenever your brain is at rest. It is the seat of your internal monologue, your self-reflection, and your mental simulation of social dynamics. When you are not actively solving a concrete problem, this network immediately defaults to analyzing your position in the social landscape. It continuously projects your identity against the perceived identities of those around you, scanning for gaps in competence, wealth, or acceptance. In the modern world, this network never receives a rest period. The continuous influx of digital social data forces the default mode network into a state of chronic toxic hyperactivity, keeping your brain locked in a permanent automated loop of self-evaluation. When your brain detects that you are falling behind your peers, the internal experience is not just an abstract thought, it is a physical sensation. Brain imaging studies reveal that the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex lights up intensely during moments of social comparison and perceived social exclusion. This is the exact same neural region responsible for processing the affective component of physical pain. When you get a paper cut or break a bone, the anterior cingulate cortex registers the distressing nature of that injury. When you look at a peer outperforming you and feel a sink in your chest, your brain is utilizing the exact same neural pathways to signal distress. Evolution did not create a new circuit for social status. It hijacked the pre-existing physical pain matrix. Your brain processes a perceived drop in social standing as a literal physical wound, because to your ancient nervous system, being left behind by the tribe carries the exact same survival risk as a physical attack. Deep within the subcortical structures of the brain sits an ancient area called the dorsal raphe nucleus, which works closely with the prefrontal cortex to monitor human hierarchy. This region is highly sensitive to changes in social rank and dictates the baseline release of serotonin. When an individual perceives themselves as holding a secure, highly valued position within their social group, serotonin signaling remains stable and robust, fostering a sense of calm, confidence, and physical relaxation. However, when the brain is bombarded with visual evidence that others are achieving more, earning more, or living better, the hierarchy tracker registers a severe drop in relative rank. This triggers an immediate systemic reduction in serotonin activity within the prefrontal networks. The sudden drop in chemical signaling creates an instinctive state of psychological anxiety, hyper-awareness, and defensive hostility, forcing your entire physiology to adapt to a state of lower social power. Social comparison fundamentally corrupts the brain's reward processing through a mechanism known as reward prediction error. Dopamine surges not just based on what you have, but on how your current reality compares to your internal expectations. When you achieve a personal milestone, your brain experiences a healthy baseline release of dopamine, reinforcing your effort and creating a sense of satisfaction. However, if you immediately open a screen and view someone who has achieved twice as much with half the effort, your internal expectation baseline is violently shifted. The brain suddenly recategorizes your actual achievement as a failure relative to the new standard. This causes an abrupt, severe drop in dopamine levels below your baseline, a phenomenon known as a negative prediction error. The physical reality of your life has not changed, but because the comparative lens has been altered, your brain registers your current existence as a chemical deficit, erasing your capacity for satisfaction. The core tragedy of modern social comparison lies in a severe evolutionary mismatch between our ancient wiring and modern architecture. The human brain's status tracking system evolved to compare its performance against a localized pool of perhaps 50 to 100 individuals within a physical tribe. In a localized group, talents and resources are naturally distributed. You might be the best hunter, while someone else is the best toolmaker, allowing everyone to maintain a baseline level of relative status. Today, the Internet merges the entire globe into a single, highly distorted digital tribe. When you look at a screen, your ancient hierarchy tracking circuits are no longer comparing you to your neighbors. They're comparing your raw, unedited daily reality against the highly curated, exceptional highlights of the top 1% of 8 billion people. Your brain cannot logically comprehend this scale. It simply registers the data as definitive proof that you are the lowest-ranking member of the tribe. When your brain constantly registers that you are lagging behind your digital peers, it places your entire body into a chronic state of low-grade defensive stress. The perception of low social status activates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, triggering a continuous subtle leak of cortisol and norepinephrine into your bloodstream. In short bursts, these stress hormones are designed to mobilize energy so you can fight or flee from an immediate danger. But when they are continuously leaked due to chronic digital comparison, they begin to systematically exhaust your nervous system. High baseline cortisol levels actively suppress neuroplasticity in the hippocampus, the region responsible for memory formation and learning. Over time, this chronic comparative stress blunts your cognitive flexibility, making it harder to focus, adapt, and think creatively. The very mechanism your brain uses to obsess over your status actively degrades the cognitive resources you need to build your own life. Your brain possesses a highly specialized class of cells called mirror neurons, located within the premotor and inferior parietal cortices. These cells are designed to fire both when you perform an action and when you passively observe someone else performing that action. They allow humans to experience empathy, learn complex movements, and mentally simulate another person's subjective reality. When you watch a highly polished, immersive video of someone experiencing luxury, success, or peak physical health, Your mirror neurons simulate that exact experience internally. Fraction of a second, your brain tastes the high-status reality. But the moment the video loops or the screen turns black, the simulation crashes against your actual physical environment. This abrupt transition triggers a violent chemical whiplash. The mirror neuron network forces your brain to instantly calculate the massive, painful distance between the simulated life and your real life, intensifying the internal sense of poverty and stagnation. Chronic social comparison deactivates the brain's ability to recognize a state of sufficiency, trapping the individual in a psychological paradox known as the hedonic treadmill. Because the evolutionary hierarchy tracker is designed to continuously scan for relative threats, it possesses no internal off-switch or final destination. It does not look for an absolute level of safety or comfort. It only looks at the moving target of what others possess. If your income doubles or your social influence expands, your brain does not celebrate completion. Instead, it instantly adjusts its baseline and shifts its comparative lens to the next higher bracket of individuals. The prefrontal cortex completely loses its ability to anchor its satisfaction to concrete physical reality. You find yourself chasing an illusionary finish line that moves backward at the exact speed of your own advancement, because your biological machinery is structurally incapable of declaring a comparative victory. As the brain dedicates more metabolic resources to tracking external hierarchies, it experiences a severe drop in the lateral prefrontal cortex activity required for individual, deep focus. The human brain operates on a finite energetic budget. Processing comparative anxiety requires an immense amount of neural electricity and glucose. When your energy is systematically consumed by the default mode network's social calculations, your executive control networks are starved of power. This creates a state of chronic mental fragmentation. You sit down to work on your own projects, but your mind is continuously hijacked by intrusive, comparative thoughts about where you should be versus where you are. This internal friction drastically slows down your rate of deep work, making your actual goals take longer to achieve. The bitter irony of social comparison is that it completely paralyzes the precise cognitive machinery required to change the very reality you are suffering from. Ultimately, the agonizing weight of social comparison must be understood not as an emotional defect, but as a mechanical certainty. Your brain is an organic survival machine performing a highly precise evolutionary calculation using completely distorted modern data. The intense sting of inadequacy you feel when scrolling through the achievements of others is definitive proof that your neural pain matrix, your hierarchy trackers, and your default mode networks are fully operational and attempting to shield you from ancestral abandonment. By stripping away the layer of personal shame and viewing this daily friction through the cold lens of neurobiology, the structural reality of the modern mind becomes entirely clear. Your brain is not broken. It is simply running a localized tribal program inside a global digital stadium. This concludes our deep diagnostic investigation into the biological cost of social comparison.